All right. We're going to go directly to fucking Fox News for obvious reasons. Let's be real. I've seen it. I've seen it in the chat 7,000 gorillion million quintillion fucking times. You are not the first person in the chat to tell me what the fuck's going on.
We're seeing this on their.
Wait, what's Fox News talking about?
Identify as male.
All right.
What's Fox News talking about? While Trump's fucking getting indicted? Suck it or go. Thank you for the 20.
Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in New York. Trump was under investigation by the DA's office for his alleged hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 campaign. So as we await more information, Fox News has just learned this from two law enforcement sources that Trump has been indicted. Perhaps I can go around the table.
What
Katie,
the
I'll start with
fuck?
you first.
What
the
the
president
fuck?
said 2 weeks ago that this was going to happen eventually.
Oh,
That would
shit.
happen, last Tuesday, the grand jury then did not.
I gotta
convene
put a
for 2
fucking
days
suit
in a row.
on.
And the grand jury was out of town allegedly for a month as of yesterday. So this is quite interesting to hear after they were sent home for the month. Now, leading up to this, there was a lot of talk about whether this would even happen, considering Alvin Bragg, who is the Manhattan district attorney who is looking into bringing these charges, would be able to, just given how long it's been since this incident, and it was allegedly a misdemeanor charge. It's never been happened in the history of the New York Attorney's Office before, and there's been a lot of controversy about whether it was appropriate, given the president is a presidential candidate again, and whether it was politically motivated.
Now, does this mean he's going to jail? No, but does this mean it's kind of funny and we're gonna have fun with it? Absolutely.
Questions about the district attorney's priorities.
They're so fucking mad, bro. They're mad they got you baited by the. They're mad they got you baited by the grand jury.
Carrying out very violent crimes in the city behind bars.
Hold on, I'll be back in a second.
Now he is focused on President Trump. But here we are with this. The president said it was going to happen. So now there are big questions about how this will go down, whether the president will come to New York to be fingerprinted, to take the charges in person, and what that will look like with Secret Service and NYPD, and whether there will be a mugshot and how that will be handled.
I think that's important to ask at this point, Jesse. We don't exactly know how this will go down, but we do know that the indictment would not be announced until it was stamped. The DA's office would then notify an attorney for the former president that he would then be indicted. At that point, the president is then free to make the information public himself. We are reporting this as we've learned it from two law enforcement officials. We'll see if we hear anything from the former president as the moments go on here. Will he be arrested? Would there be any sort of mugshot taken? Will he appear in court? Those are questions that we do not have answers to at this moment.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I feel bad for the guy. He didn't even really have to be president. He had a lot of money. He had a great life. And he decided to run. He won. He got in. They took him down. And now they're trying to nickel and dime him for a private agreement he made with a woman, 8 years ago? It has nothing to do with politics. Wasn't paid through campaign funds. This is a disgrace. And I think it takes about a week to get the logistics in, so he'll come up and he will get fingerprinted, and they'll get a mugshot. And then they'll plaster that mugshot all over the country for the next 2 years and run against a criminal. And that's what this is all about. No one wanted this. Not even the left wanted this. But now I'm thinking Bragg got embarrassed, because everything you heard over the last 48 hours is they were just going to put this to bed and take a break for a month. So I don't know if there's pressure put on him, because his numbers went up in the last couple weeks when this thing swirled. So maybe the left's calculating that indicting this guy is going to get him the nomination, and they think he's easier to beat. But I wouldn't be so sure about that, because there's going to be a major rally around the flag feeling. I'm starting to feel it right now. I'm angry about it. I don't like it. The country's not going to stand for it. And people better be careful. And that's all I'll say about that.
Okay.
This is the third act of the movie, right? It really is. This is how it has to be. This guarantees his nomination. Alvin Bragg is the MAGA Republican of the Year. He just got Trump's nomination. I think if there's a mugshot, which there will be, you got to own it. That's got to be the poster. That's got to be. He is an OG. right? If they give me, I mean, he is a badass. If he's got a mugshot, you might as well go right into it. And the thing is, his poll numbers have gone up with this. I just think this is going to make sure he is going to be on the ticket. And to your point, they made that gamble in 2016. They thought that he would lose to Hillary, and he didn't. So I don't know if they really think that this is good, like the Joy Behar logic, which is like, oh, he'll be easy to beat.
Just one factual point. It's being reported that it's a felony indictment, and I was saying earlier that they were looking at it as a misdemeanor, and that's why much of the criticism was about that issue. There was talk that Alvin Bragg, as the Manhattan District Attorney, would try to make it a felony, to make it a more serious charge. And now, of course, he's going to have to prove this because he's the one who's taking the information from the grand jury, and he will have to then explain why, beyond a reasonable doubt, he thinks that the charges will stick.
Jessica?
He did. He was bumping it up because it was seen as something to help Donald Trump's campaign, because this all happened a couple of weeks before the election. So it clearly was something that he didn't want to come out and inform the results of the 2016 election. I'm completely shocked by this. When Trump said, I'm going to be indicted on Tuesday, I thought, okay, maybe it's not Tuesday, but this is coming.
I haven't tied a tie in so long.
They weren't meeting on their normal days. And then the letter that Alvin Bragg sent back in response to...
But I guess you never forget.
And said, basically, this is all
This is
your
the only tie I own. I got it from my dad.
About an indictment. No one out of New York is talking about it.
Many years ago.
Due to the fact that there was a lot of pressure on him from liberals. I talked about it on air, saying that of all of the myriad of things that Donald Trump is under investigation for, this is not the one where you're going to be able to rally people around to say, yeah, this is unequivocally a thing that he did wrong. It was going to be what happened in Georgia with pressuring officials there to overturn the 2020
Bro, this is crazy.
election.
I can't believe it.
Which there is no evidence, but go ahead.
What, phone calls saying, find me 11,000.
What's your definition of find? Like, do you find something that you have to create, or do you find something that's already there?
Well, they weren't there, and it had been certified and examined and certified again.
Find me a good masseuse. I don't say create a new masseuse. Find me a masseuse.
You don't think that the tour of Donald Trump and all of his lawyers throughout the country trying to get the results overturned in states like Arizona and Pennsylvania and Georgia?
Georgia. I was just responding to Georgia.
Okay. So anyway,
Georgia was on your mind.
Always. The mugshot will definitely be part of this. I mean, Donald Trump was up. The Fox News poll that just came up, he's up 30 points in this. He was going to be the nominee anyway. I mean, I was even talking about, should Ron DeSantis run this time around? He's young. Wait until Trump is out of the picture if you're going to do this. But it certainly seems like he would be the nominee.
This is a moment in American history that people will remember. This is a political Rubicon that has been crossed. Yeah. It will certainly change the GOP primary, but it will also change precedent. And Democrats talk a lot about precedent. Well, they just set one with this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And by the way, since this is white collar, we obviously have our camera outside the DA's office here in New York. The DA's office has to now ask Trump's attorney when he plans to come to New York to be arraigned. It doesn't require him to turn himself in, so there's no specific time frame. It could be any minute now. It could be any day, but we'll see.
Well, you can zoom it in, but they won't let him zoom it in because they want the spectacle.
He wants it too, though.
He doesn't want to be indicted. If you think he wants this, he doesn't want it. The family doesn't want it.
Fuck.
Imagine being Barron Trump. Hey, Dad, what are you looking at? It's not good. And it's horrible that Alvin Bragg, who's a joke in this town, who should get run out of town because crime's running wild, is going after this. If you get a haircut a couple weeks before an election and you pay for it out of your own pocket, not campaign funds, how is that a campaign finance felony? You were going to get a haircut anyway. You wanted to look good anyway. Just like he would have paid off this woman anyway,
you think
whether he was running for president or not.
Is the same as getting a touch-up on your hair?
Yeah, dude, come on, dude. Come on, it's just like a masseuse or a haircut.
For Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill, the Fox has spoken with one senior aide and one source close to the House inquiry of Manhattan DA.
The only funny part about this is that, like, it is literally the lowest offense that you could get him on. Like, it's just the lowest offense that you could get him on, which is like campaign finance law mismanagement, which has happened regularly and routinely. Other people have had to pay basically just like a small fine, but I'm still going to enjoy it. I don't give a fuck.
Out of the race if you're indicted. And he said, absolutely not. He predicted then and said it would probably help my numbers. Now, as this has been brewing and we've been waiting on some potential action by the Manhattan DA, we have seen him climb in the polls. Our own polls show that he's added several points to his lead among GOP primary voters over the last few weeks while we knew this was percolating. A lot of folks will say this is baked in. So now we wait to see what happens. I do think the president, I think Jesse's right, nobody wants to be indicted, but I do think this president is very good, the former president, at making the best of whatever circumstances come his way. And I think he knows that if people see him in handcuffs, being dragged around, it lends to his argument that the establishment is against him, the deep state is against him. So not a positive, but I think that he knows how to turn it into one as best possible. So now we will wait to see what happens. As you all mentioned, we've got Georgia. We had the foreperson in that grand jury out there talking about the fact that she was estimating or predicting several indictments. We've got the ongoing federal investigations, 2 different probes within the Justice Department. So listen, there is nothing illegally that stops a president or anyone who has been indicted from running for the White House, even if convicted. That's not going to stop him either. So I don't expect his campaign to slow down. In the lead, at least, if anything, I expect it would rev up. But we're all waiting to see documents to get more information. That may take a while. We'll figure out when the arraignment's going to be. But for now, after what seems like a pause, after some interesting testimony from attorney Robert Costello, who said there are emails you haven't seen to the grand jury, there's more to the story about Michael Cohen, and caution from the left and the right that Michael Cohen may not be the best witness to build this case around, they've moved forward. So an indictment is one thing, a conviction is something totally different.
It's a felony charge for what is otherwise considered a misdemeanor in almost every single circumstance. It's only sister's wedding, Trump indicted. Absolutely, dude. Abso-fucking-lutely. So the interesting component here is literally that, well, one, there's a couple different things we got to talk about. Number one, Donald Trump has done a fuckload of crimes. I believe, according to the Office of Ethics or the Citizens for Ethics Foundation, 53 crimes that he has committed since he's been in office, right? Or leading up to him running for the presidency. So he's done a lot of crimes. That much is clear. This is probably one of the lower versions of that, like in the lowest of low rungs, because of the nature of the crime itself. It is technically considered in other circumstances a misdemeanor, and for it to be a felony, you need to show intent, and also you need to be able to prove that this was done with prior knowledge that it would be illegal. As far as I understand, you would have to literally also show that you did it specifically to save your campaign. Like, there are a lot of different components here that make this such a weird thing to indict Trump over. But, it's still funny. You know what I mean? It's still very funny. Does that make sense? That's why I'm
Gowdy
cherishing
is joining us now as well, former South Carolina congressman and host of Sunday Night in America. Trey, jump on in here to the news, and what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a surprise, but quite candidly, we're not supposed to know what grand juries are doing. Ideally, this has been an exception. My position has not changed. I think it is the weakest of the 4 investigations. It's the wrong prosecutor, which you alluded to. It's the wrong fact pattern. You got statute of limitations issues. It's really a misdemeanor that put on a suit, and they want it to look like a felony. And I just look, when our justice system becomes a political tool, then we are on thin ice as a republic, and I think we are increasingly heading in that direction.
Trey, did Democrats just indict a former president over sex? Because we were told during the 90s that it was just
There
sex.
ain't no way. There ain't no fucking way, dude.
And it had nothing to do with politics,
Yes!
nothing to do with policy. Weren't we told that?
Yes!
And you have to understand, he says he didn't have sex with this woman. She had her hand out, saying, hey, I'm not going to say anything unless you pay me. So either it's a consensual sexual encounter or it's a shakedown. And Democrats want to make that a felony?
I don't understand. Why would it be a fucking shakedown? It's literally just how they have explained the situation. That's what it is.
No longer going to prosecute prostitution was on that list. So it can't be about sex. It is the falsification of a business record, which, look, I'm not in favor of. You shouldn't do it. It's a misdemeanor.
But come on, come on, let him have this. Like that's Fox News defense is literally just come on, let him have it. Yeah, it's a little bit of crime.
Federal election law violation. The U.S. attorney's already taken a pass on this case. So again, I'm not speaking for the other jurisdictions that have the former president under investigation. I've always thought special counsel was factually the one where he was in the most peril. I don't know why you wouldn't go with your strongest case. And I can tell you right now, Jack Smith probably is not happy about it either, because prosecutors always go with your strongest factual and legal case. This ain't that.
Trey, this is Greg. How you doing?
Hello, Greg.
I miss you. Anyway, everybody always says, nobody is above the law. No one's above the law. It's so trite. But it feels like no one should be below the law either, and it feels like Trump has been made to be below the law. You don't have to meet any standards.
Yeah, it's so fucked up, dude. If there's one thing, Trump, if there's one thing that's happened to Trump, he's been prosecuted too much. That's what I'm always thinking. That's what I'm always saying. One funny fact about Trump is that they prosecute him too much. They over-prosecute him.
The law. So there are plenty of examples on both sides of our justice system being weaponized. So I would think that this would be something that we universally rejected, but unfortunately, if it's done to our opponents, we like it, and if it's done to our friends, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why it's significant is because, former presidents have gotten in trouble, or presidents have gotten in trouble with the law before. Like, there's that famous horse speed ticket. I forget who it was, but there have been instances like this, right? No, I'm not even talking about Nixon. No, I'm not. No, it never. Yeah, it was Grant, right? Obviously, former presidents have violated the law routinely, both during their tenure or even before their tenure. Like George W. Bush was drunk driving, got caught, but that was before he ever became president. So did Dick Cheney, by the way, but that's besides the point. Anyway, but that kind of stuff is whatever. Grant was speeding with a horse. That's why he got a couple speeding tickets with a horse. But never in the history of the United States of America have you ever had a former president get indicted for something. Even Richard Nixon didn't get it. So that's why this is unique.
Left have criticized the effort. This is a patently political prosecution, writes Jonathan Turley. A lot of reaction, obviously, pouring in from both sides of the aisle at this moment. The White House has been asked for comment. When asked, do you have comment? We don't. I believe that was the direct quote. So the White House is not weighing in this moment.
Yeah, why would they weigh in? Are you kidding me? Yeah, we do not comment on matters, so you can call us out as blatantly moving the needle on an active, ongoing fucking indictment. Yeah, no shit. You know who shouldn't be speaking out on this, and yet he has? Donald Trump. Donald Trump regularly engaged in jury tampering by routinely fucking talking about the indictment before it happened. That is actually another fucking law-abiding moment for Donald Trump. Someone with that level of power and influence should not be able to just leak information that he was supposed to not be privy to because of some of the witnesses that were brought into the grand jury, in front of the grand jury, and then openly stating that it's fucked up. Not illegal to talk about an indictment? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying it's illegal to talk about an indictment. I'm saying that you could absolutely consider it to be jury tampering if you get information about an indictment that you are not privy to because some of your former lawyers or people connected to your former lawyers have access to information that the public is not privy to, and then you publicly blast the fucking jury on the timeline, you publicly blast the people and try to motivate a potential insurrection in an effort to stop this from happening. He literally said, go out into the fucking streets. Get out to the streets and go out and protest this shit. Okay? That in and of itself is in my opinion, definitely, this is so libbed up. I mean, yeah, it's, for the record, I don't think anything's going to happen. I just want you to understand, I am an incredibly cynical person. I'm just simply reacting to the news and laughing about it. But that does not mean that I think that he has a serious shot at being fucking arrested and going to jail or anything like that. Do not misunderstand me. This is simply for entertainment.
Issue. I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump. I was the chief deputy in the attorney general's office. We sued the Trump administration over 100 times.
And you believe it should happen?
I believe we have to hold them accountable.
Andy Biggs just put out a note saying this is Trump derangement syndrome. It's infiltrated our judicial system. If they can come for him, they can come for anyone.
I don't like when people have been saying that a lot the last few weeks. They can come from you if you do the same thing that he did. It's not like he was walking down the street.
Stop it, Jessica. No one's going after some random dude that settles an extortion case with a woman. Come on. It's because he's running for president.
Alvin Bragg had backed down from that position because it wasn't even popular within the ranks.
He
right?
was waiting for the timing to be right. And this was the timing.
I guess that it was.
Yes, technically his Secret Service would have to go into jail.
How heavy this feels.
Alongside Trump.
There are very few moments. I mean, I'm
which is
no
pretty
fan
awesome.
Of the former president, and I'm not saying that he didn't commit a crime, but I am really struck by how powerful
Jesse
it feels
Waters
right
is
now
freaking pissed. He's in this mode.
Going to be
yeah,
100% a note in every single history book that is going to come after this about what has gone on, and that has nothing to do with.
That's why Bragg did it.
I mean, it's pretty awesome and it's pretty funny. Like, here's a thing that these fucking dipshits would say, regardless of the material conditions of whoever the perpetrator of any particular crime is, regardless of the low-level offenses that they might be serving a fucking life sentence for, these fucking dickheads in suits would sit there and go, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But when it comes down to like one of the most powerful motherfuckers on the planet, who literally was the most powerful motherfucker on the planet until he lost an election because Joe Brandon stole it from him, they're like, dude, we need to do prison abolition. Our prisons should be obsolete, right? Like a bunch of Angela Davises. You never would have thought. You never would have seen it. You love to see it. You hate to see it. Doesn't matter. They're like, it is really fucked up that the criminal justice system is so gross and the carceral state is so inhumane. It's like, the fuck do you mean, man? What do you mean? It is for the fucking working poor. For once, we should have a little bit of fun. We should have a little bit of fun at the expense of like an actually powerful person who's done a tremendously shitty job as president. And not only that, but like will receive just a fraction of the outcomes. I wish that this was not done over the hush money for Stormy Daniels. I wish this was done over the RICO charges, the RICO case that's being developed for the past fucking however many years now with Fani Willis. She should be worrying more about her RICO case on Donald Trump for election tampering, which is a very valid case, instead of, trying to make sure that like everyone who's ever rapped under Young Thug's record label goes to prison permanently. Okay? How about you work on this shit instead? I wish it was over that. I wish this indictment was actually over that RICO case, because that RICO case is actually a valid one, a legitimate one, a genuine, like that one is actually genuine. That one is actually a viable and valid RICO charge that he could be hit with, because he actually did do something that is criminal. And he should go to jail over it. This one, he's just going to get a fucking light pad. He's going to get a tap. He's not even going to get a slap on the wrist. He's going to get a little bit of this on the wrist, okay? Maximum, he pays like a fine or some shit. It'd be really funny if they perp walked him for that.
Didn't think this was the best case that they had, but we are where we are, and this is unprecedented territory.
Katie? Brett, you mentioned the political implications of this, and you go through the list of prosecutors on the federal level who decided not to bring these charges. Just generally speaking, at a time when the country is in a place of distrust of institutions. The political lines have been drawn. It's a very intense political environment. How do you see this moving?
I love the Associated Press using this photo. That's deliberate. You know what I'm saying? They're pulling the Andrew Tate on him with these photos. They're making him, they're perp walking him like he's Andrew Tate. Are they gonna like shave his head too and not let him, and then make it grow out unevenly and shit? What the fuck? He's going to be in jail for one night and have his pants hemmed and the sleeves cut off his sweats and have a snack stash like the kids at camp on heavyweights. Oh, yeah. Also, he's rich. He doesn't
think that.
Here's the thing. Rich people don't go to jail like fucking poor people do, okay? He goes to jail or he goes to the fucking courts on his own time. So remember that. Rich people also don't see the top of the hour ad break. That's just how it fucking works, because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you could do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Okay? Use it here. You can also get gifted a sub. Sometimes that's what rich people do. Prop 65 warning. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's a 3-minute ad break now.
This is almost like 2016, where he just commands all the free media. You know what I mean? And everybody laughed about it. They, like Morning Joe and CNN, thought that they were just going to, amplify him so he'll lose. And it didn't turn out that way.
Do I think that Trump getting perp walked is going to benefit him? Absolutely. He's going to look like a bad bitch. But guess what? Ultimately, that's more content. Do you understand? There's nothing I can do about it. And I'm just analyzing it. I'm just laughing at it. Do you understand? And that's what your perspective on the matter should be. Do not take this super seriously. Do not act like this is going to end him or anything like that. We don't know. It's not very likely either. Virtual Meal, Darkest Fortune, and Cam Shron, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. You know?
Sobering and unprecedented development. But if justice demanded that Michael Cohen go to jail for a scheme directed by someone else, justice also requires that the person responsible for directing the scheme must answer for their offenses against the law, and that person is Donald Trump.
True.
Also, just a little bit of color, as you can see, the live shot of the Manhattan DA's office there. We have a reporter on the scene who's describing helicopters already hovering overhead. Several court officers are outside lining up. There's some tension building there. They are saying that Bragg is still in that office right now, as his car is still and parked somewhere around there. So far, none of the Trump lawyers have specifically weighed into Fox on this case at the moment. Jessica, want to jump in there?
I don't care what Adam Schiff has to say. That guy is a total basket case and is responsible for the unjust political
Susie3
persecution
Sheep,
of this
thank you for the 5 gifted subs. My food is here. I got to go grab her real quick.
Tried to charge a bodega owner with attempted murder for defending himself. A guy broke into his shop. Luckily, he had a knife and he ended up defending himself. Bragg wanted to throw that man in prison. Bragg lets felons go rape women in this city. It is a disgusting scene at the DA's office. And that man better show up to the cameras and start answering questions about what judgments he made here. And I hope the House Republicans haul his little butt back to Capitol Hill and answer. And so he answers.
Damn, he said he's
to the
fat.
American people about what he's doing here. This cannot stand. I actually agree with Jessica. This doesn't feel right. Something feels terrible.
You know, GOP candidate Vivek Ramaswamy just weighed in, saying very similarly, it will undermine public trust in our electoral system and justice system. He says it's un-American for the ruling party to use police power to arrest.
Dude, you know what's really... Yeah, you know what undermines American trust in the electoral system? Constantly lying about voter fraud to a degree, or constantly lying about how the voter fraud actually ended up stealing the elections and then doing a fucking insurrection that was a failure overall over it. That literally undermines elections. That does. It fucks your side over so hard that like Republicans literally were like, why the fuck am I voting for this shit? It genuinely depresses voter turnout when they feel like the deep state pedophile Democrats are fucking controlling elections.
History. Fox News has learned from 2 law enforcement sources that a grand jury in New York City has indicted former President Donald Trump. This is the first former president or sitting president to face criminal charges. The precise charges not currently known, but the case is focused on a hush money payment to a porn actress during his 2016
That's the funniest part, that they have
campaign.
to reveal the details every single time.
This is a moment that will shake up the 2024 race, but again, is historic. We've never seen anything like this before. Let's get the latest now from senior correspondent Laura Engel, live in New York. Good evening, Laura.
Good evening, Brett. And as you can see, our cameras are downtown at that courthouse. Fox News can confirm that a Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump, as you mentioned, the first former U.S. president to be charged criminally. The 23 grand.
I'm not going to lie. This is going to fire up the schizo base a little bit, I think. Like, do I think this is something that the regular Republicans give a shit about all that much? Maybe not. A lot of them are in a holding pattern, voters, I mean, where they're just like looking to see what happens in the primaries, right? But the schizo base is like, oh my God. Like, I can see them trying to blow up the courthouse or some shit. I hope that doesn't happen, but.
Mom, I want a vape. Mom, I want a vape.
Illegal. You go to jail for that because of Trump.
During a rally in Waco Saturday, Trump, who is again running for president, claimed he's under investigation for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair. The felony indictment is under seal, and we expect to get more details on the charges in the coming days. Trump's attorneys will likely negotiate with the district attorney some sort of plan to have the former president surrender and be arraigned in downtown Manhattan. A lawyer for Trump told us that she doesn't know when he would surrender. Now, Trump is also facing 3 other criminal investigations, including efforts to overturn the 2020 election, keeping classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and the January 6th Capitol riot. We will bring you more as we get it here in New York. Brett.
Okay, Laura, thank you. Let's go to Fox News chief legal correspondent and anchor of Fox News Sunday, Shannon Bream. Good evening, Shannon. Just moments ago, Eric Trump relaying that this is a third world prosecutorial misconduct, reacting to the word of the indictment. It is shocking, and it is not something that I think people expected at 5:28 on a Thursday after what we've been seeing in recent days.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is the first of its kind. This is the first time in history we are indicting a former president. So we are in totally new territory here. And Alvin Bragg has been warned by people right, center, and left that they are worried that what he's done with this case is going to look like nothing but political maneuvering when it comes time to actually get a conviction. An indictment is one thing, a conviction is another. You heard the former president talk about this in Waco. He says there's a new tool in the bag against me. It is prosecutorial discretion. Nobody wants to be indicted, but he is certainly.
Let's take a look at what Trump had to say about this.
Unusual situation that's taking place. And again, legal scholars can't believe what they're witnessing. And yet, after going over 11 million pages of documents, I built a great company. They've got nothing. They've got nothing. Think of it. 11 million pages. And my tax returns on top of it, and they're a big return. It probably makes me the most innocent man in the history of our country. Friends of mine say that. You will be vindicated.
Not my enemies, just friends of mine. They say that, believe me.
Works. It'll be up to New York jurors now.
All right, Shannon, stand by if you would. Let's bring in George Washington University Law School professor Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, I heard some reaction from you. It is quite something to see this moment, and it's really historic, this moment that we're facing.
It is. It's historic. It's not necessarily good history that is being made. It's not that I oppose the indictment of a former president. I don't even oppose the indictment of a sitting president on constitutional basis. But this indictment, it is reportedly following the theory that we've been talking about, is political. It's a raw political prosecution. Now, the indictment may come out with a crime that none of us have heard of, but for many months, this bootstrapping theory has been put out there. This idea that you could take a misdemeanor under New York law that has expired, that has a 2-year statute of limitations, and revive it.
I love the expiration on it. Because, like, you literally couldn't fucking indict him because he was a sitting president. Like, what do you mean? You can't, what the fuck?
Bragg's own predecessor declined to prosecute.
Yeah, they tried to do it while he was the president. You were like, you can't fucking indict a sitting president. Shut the fuck up.
Into a state case. And if that is the basis for the indictment, I think it's rather outrageous. I think it's legally pathetic.
Looking live at Mar-a-Lago,
Legally
Palm
pathetic.
Beach, residence for the former president. I want to read just a paragraph from the New York Times documenting of this in this story. It says, on Thursday, the 3 lead prosecutors on the Trump investigation walked into the building where the grand jury was sitting in the minutes before the panel was scheduled to meet at 2 p.m. One of them carried a copy of the penal law with Post-it notes visible, which was likely used to read the criminal statutes to the grand jurors before they voted. About 3 hours later, the prosecutors walked into the court clerk's office through a back door to begin the process of filing the indictment. As you rightly point out, Jonathan, the federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York chose not to go down this road with this case. The Federal Election Commission chose not to go down this road with this case.
I can't wait for them to like use incredible like legal, like absolutely insane fucking legal counters here to, instead of like addressing the facts of the matter, they're going to say stuff like, well, how could a grand jury ever not be tarnished because it's the president and he was a very polarizing figure? A jury of his peers? Well, Trump is unmatchable. He is the greatest superhero of all time. There is no peer. But you know what I mean? They should throw this grand jury indictment in the trash because, again, you cannot have a peer. You cannot have anyone be unbiased against our Lord and Savior Donald Trump. Shit like that. They're going to do it, and it's going to be really fun to watch, in my opinion.
John Edwards, arguing that hush money paid to another woman who bore a child out of that relationship.
Oh, yeah, John Edwards
was, in fact, a campaign.
That one is legit.
Violation. That was a much stronger case, but they lost. And the reason they lost
He's right about this.
Even if you can bootstrap that dead misdemeanor into something alive, you're essentially arguing a federal case that the Department of Justice declined. But it's also a case that requires you to show, if that is the basis of this indictment, that Trump's his sole motive for paying this money or having third parties pay it was for the election.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem from Edwards. There's a host of reasons why a
he can say he did this.
Married individual would want to.
He can say this, that he paid the hush money for not just like this campaign, but actually he paid the hush money to protect himself.
Negotiation that's going to happen
to protect his marriage.
The dealing with the Secret Service, the fingerprinting, the photograph. We've been through kind of speculation about this. But one last thing on the legal case. You talked about how this is new as far as its construct. And judges would have to evaluate that not only first on the case itself, but then if you got to a conviction on an appeal that could last for a very long time. Meantime, there are other federal cases that perhaps are stronger if you are really going after the former president. The federal case in Georgia about election interference, and not to mention the special counsel and the January 6th investigation.
Yeah, and look, Bragg is.
If I was Trump, I'd be pissed that Fox News keeps saying that, by the way. I'd be like, dude, shut the fuck up. Why do you keep telling him that there are better cases out there?
Theory, which is the only one that's been discussed publicly, that is unprecedented. And I expect that New York judges will have.
What's unprecedented is that you can have a president. You can have a president with like better cases elsewhere, both at the DOJ level or at another state. That's unprecedented. It's wild that we're like, well, you know, if you really wanted to throw him in jail, you could have used the Georgia one or the January 6th committee. It's like, what? Like, how unhinged are we as a fucking nation that the former president has better cases that you can use to throw him in jail than the current one that just indicted him? And no one sits around and goes, that's kind of fucked up. That's weird, bro.
Committee, and he says that this is, quote,
it's true,
outrageous.
By the way. It is true. Those guys on Fox News are saying truthful things right now.
We've also heard from Andy Biggs, Republican from Arizona, somebody who has been a staunch defender of the former president. He says that this is Trump derangement syndrome. Meantime, on the other side of the aisle, you have Pete Aguilar. He's the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and he says it's long overdue for the American people to see him be held accountable. Let's bring him to justice. Tom Tillis, Republican senator from North Carolina, says that this indictment doesn't pass the smell test. And then Adam Schiff, the former chairman of the Intelligence Committee, also he was the lead impeachment manager during the first impeachment trial. He says that this is deeply and fundamentally necessary to preserve the rule of law. Now, tomorrow was the deadline for these three House committee chairs. I mentioned Jim Jordan. We also had Brian Stile. He's the chair of the House Administration Committee, which has jurisdiction over federal elections. And also James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, who deals with the Oversight Committee. They had another deadline for tomorrow to get information from Alvin Bragg. They want to know what money is being spent on this investigation. They also want to know if he's been talking to the Justice Department. They want to understand the scope. They're saying, look, you're a local DA in one borough in Manhattan, New York. How can you deal with a former president of the United States?
Dude, God, Trump is such a fucking awesome character, dude. I mean, he really fucked shit up, but like, this is awesome. Like, I mean, look at how many different ways you can celebrate this. How hot is he going to look in his mugshot? He is a mugshouty. He is a mugshouty.
They were not going to comment on this until they actually saw official paperwork from the DA. So Democrats, to some degree, and we saw this a couple of weeks ago, Brett, when there was this, swirl, this conjecture that it was imminent that there was going to be an indictment here. The Democrats were more than happy just to kind of sit this out and let Republicans go to bat for the president. They were kind of viewing this from a political lens or through a political lens and say, look, if you guys want to go and defend former President Trump, somebody who's been through 2 impeachment trials, the riot, all these other things here, go do it. We're just going to sit that out and let the American
impeachment
people
survivors.
Decide that. So the reaction coming in here on Capitol Hill. I should note that just a couple of hours ago, this was the final session for 2 weeks. We're on the Easter Passover recess here, and the Capitol is basically a ghost town after about 3:30, 4 o'clock. There's nobody here. That would be a different scene. You would have press conferences, people chasing, reporters chasing members up and down the hall, but nobody is here. Everybody has gone home. They went to the airport. They got on the train. And so all this reaction is kind of delayed. It's going to be a slow reaction here from Capitol Hill because nobody is on Capitol Hill right now, Brett.
Yeah, these motherfuckers are the worst, bro. They just like never work. They're just openly fucking admitting that he won. Oh, yeah, he really did. He did. This is yet another fucking day full of W's for liberals on Twitter. I hate to see it. I hate to say it. But like every annoying fucking lib, every resistance lib that has popped off on the timeline should be celebrating, really. It didn't happen last time. I don't know why. There it is. Ha 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 ha. Oops, I mean how terrible for Donald Trump. Jeff Tiedrich. He did it. He fucking did it, man. You won, Jeff. You got him. Just a little bit. Just have fun with it, is my point. Do I think that he's going to go to jail over this? No. Does it matter? Will it, I hope, piss off the Republicans? I hope so.
To go down this road. But, Alvin Bragg, there were kind of 2 volleys, Wimbledon-esque back and forth between the House committee chairs and Alvin Bragg over the past 7-8 days. And Alvin Bragg saying, look, you don't have jurisdiction here. It is inappropriate. It is improper for you to get involved in a criminal investigation that I'm conducting in New York City. Historically, Congress has stayed out of those matters, and that's why Alvin Bragg said that this was so extraordinary. You had people like Jamie Raskin, the Democrat from Maryland, who's the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, saying as much and kind of going to bat for Bragg. So it's unclear. And partly it's unclear, Brett, because this is such uncharted territory. We have never really been here before with an indicted president, let alone with, a House committee or a trio of House committees investigating the DA at that point and wanting him to come and testify, telling him that he is not immune from a subpoena to appear.
Yeah, I love the fucking the Republican Party being like, this is political, so we're gonna make it political. Like, imagine literally trying to intimidate and investigate a DA that's like actively conducting an investigation into a former president of your party. That's wild. That is literally political. Do I think the DA is political? Absolutely. Okay. Do I think this case is like political? Of course it is. Donald Trump. Do I still advocate for it? 100%.
Deep state and save our country by putting America first. For that, the political elites and power brokers have weaponized government to try and stop him. They will fail. He will be reelected in the greatest landslide in American history, and together we will all make America great again. This is Taylor Budowich, CEO of Make America Great Again, Inc. Let's bring in White House correspondent Peter Doocy, live from the North Lawn. I assume the White House is not going down this road as of yet. Good evening, Peter.
They're not. I asked a few officials here at the White House, Brett, if they had any comment on this indictment, if they were going to have any comment on this indictment tonight, and I got a real short response back. It just said, we don't. If there is some kind of a Biden brief.
I love this because like what Peter Doocy is doing here and what everyone else is doing in the media right now, especially in right-wing media, is basically like gray name chatters that come in and bait me. Whenever like something is happening, they'll be like, Hasan, your silence on this matter is deafening. They're literally trying to bait the White House into saying something so they can fucking be like, look at how political this is. And the White House so far, of course, is not like dumb enough to literally come out and say anything. Okay. So they're like, they're not saying anything
Yet. And recently, officials here have talked about this.
But they're trying.
Bit.
They're trying so hard to bait them.
There are sensitivities because Donald Trump is already a candidate for 2024, and President Biden intends to become a candidate. So they try to avoid Hatch Act considerations or be respectful of Hatch Act considerations. But there are some questions that they have not been able to avoid. They've told us that they are not aware. They've told us within the last week and a half, they're not aware of any threats tied to political or threats of political violence tied to the Trump, the possibility of a Trump indictment. They've also said that if people are going to protest, it's important to this administration that they protest peacefully. But you get the sense,
the far right fell off.
Officials here and listening to what they say privately and publicly, that they don't really want to talk about this. They think that they've got a good thing going, contrasting their record with Republicans on Capitol Hill. They would rather talk about the issues. You don't see President Biden go out and talk about anything but his budget and his agenda. So it seems like they're going to try as hard as they can here at the White House to keep the focus on things that the president would be doing if there was no indictment. Tomorrow he's going to go to Mississippi to survey storm damage. It's entirely possible that we don't hear anything directly from President Biden for several days about this. And it would seem that that is how officials that are in charge of the message here would like to keep it for as long as possible. Brett.
Peter Doocy, live on the North Lawn. Peter, thank you. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson has been reaching out to the candidates running against the former president for the 2024 nomination on the GOP side. Rich, what are you hearing?
Well, not so much, Brett, at least not much of a reaction in the way. First off, the Trump campaign hasn't said anything about this. You read the statement from the super PAC that's supporting Donald Trump in his bid for the presidency, but nothing specifically from the campaign or from Donald Trump himself yet on social media. You've also got Nikki Haley, his
React
former
harder, White House.
During his administration. Her campaign has not gotten back to us. We've reached out to them for some reaction. Former Vice President Mike Pence, who is mulling a run, he has not gotten back to us either, though we have seen something from the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He has not said he is running for president, but he has said he is mulling a run, and he said in a tweet that the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, is undermining America's confidence in our legal system. Bragg is the same Soros-funded prosecutor who refuses to prosecute violent crimes. Prosecuting serious crimes keeps Americans safe, but political prosecution...
You know what's funny? They're not wrong when they say that. Because the American criminal justice system is not supposed to throw like rich people and powerful people or right-wing people in general in jail. Okay, unless they're like meth head Nazis that blew up shot at Transformers at another fucking power facility or something, right? Like the American criminal justice system is operated under the assumption, has always operated under the assumption that like if you're rich, if you're white, if you're powerful, like unless you fuck over other rich people like pretty aggressively, you're probably not ever going to suffer legal consequences for your actions. So with that in mind, they're not wrong when they say this undermines our confidence in the criminal justice system. Like, this guy's not supposed to go to jail. Like, he's not poor. He's not black. He's not brown. That's crazy. Like, he's not supposed to ever withstand any kind of legal scrutiny.
Got a statement from the former president, so it's fairly lengthy, but I'll read it here because we're looking for reaction from him. We'll put up some pictures of him as I read this. This is a statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. This is political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president of the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hard-working men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. You remember it just like I do. Russia, 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 the Mueller hoax, Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2, the illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid, and now this. The Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to get Trump, but now they've done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. Never before in our nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times over the decades, including spying on my campaign, but weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent who just so happens to be a president of the United States and by far the leading Republican candidate for president has never happened before.
He's like
Manhattan DA Alvin.
He had to hit one for DeSantis in there too.
George Soros is a disgrace. Going on, saying rather than stopping the unprecedented crime wave taking over New York City, he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring the murders and burglaries and assaults he should be focused on. This is how Bragg spends his time. I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. The American people realize exactly what the radical left Democrats are doing here. Everyone can see it. So our movement and our party, united and strong, will first defeat Alvin Bragg, and then we will defeat Joe Biden, and we are going to throw every last one of these crooked Democrats out of office so we can make America great again. Again, that is a complete statement from Donald J. Trump.
It's so sad that Trump can't even get his fucking supporters out there. The only people are like resistance libs that are like 75 years old.
President, current, former, sitting, to be charged with a crime. According to law enforcement sources, the indictment was filed this afternoon, late this afternoon.
I'm telling you,
by
man.
the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and prosecutors in that office after a grand jury vote. We don't, again, have specifics of these charges, but
I'm not even kidding. Dude, he is fucking falling off, brother.
To a porn actress that was made in the 2016, leading up to the 2016 presidential election. This is what the focus has been But again, we don't have the specifics. But there you hear a very lengthy statement by the former president of the United States. Let's bring in our panel. Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee congressman, co-host of The Five, Molly Hemingway, editor-in-chief at The Federalist, and Vince Colonnese, WMAL Washington talk radio host and editorial director at The Daily Caller. Molly, let me start with you. Your reaction to this day, the president's comments there, and where this heads.
Well, it's a very dark day. One of the things that we cared about in this country for a very long time was to be a nation ruled by law and not by men. This ushers in what will probably be a very dark era of political persecution and prosecution, the type that we normally associate with the Soviet Union or with banana republics. You know, during the Stalin era, it was common to say, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. It didn't matter, you know, whether someone had broken any law. They would figure out a way to charge and convict them of that for political opponents. And you see this all the time in third world countries where political opponents who are deemed a threat to the current regime are charged with crimes. This is not good for this country. It is very...
Trump supporters are afraid of cities. They're not going to New York. Dude, you're crazy. Like, I mean, part of the reason why there's not a big enough crowd forming out there for Trump supporters at this time is because, like, the grand jury debated everybody. If you recall, originally they were like, there was a will they, won't they type situation where they kept saying like, oh, we're postponing for another day. We're postponing for another day. We're postponing for another day. And then they just out of nowhere said, we're going to postpone for a month. And then 2 days later, boom, dropped it on them. Dropped it on them like a dime, dude. Fucking awesome. Absolute mental shit, lads. Fucking love to see it, lads.
That they were worried about this prosecution going forward. Again, we don't have the specific papers as of yet, but we know from sources it has been
mental fucking strategy.
So I've watched your show, and I agree with Molly in one regard. This is an unfortunate and dark moment. I'd say two or three different things.
They keep saying how dark of a moment it is, and I'm out here like, bro, I can see clearly now the rain has gone. You know what? It's not even fucking raining any longer. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck do you mean?
I think we all suppose or surmise that it has to do with some payments to a porn star. But we don't know.
We read this already.
That yet. And I think it's important for Democrats, Republicans alike, particularly political officials, to show a little restraint here until we see it. Perhaps your criticism is warranted on both sides, or at least one side, but we should be careful. Two, I would differ with those who think we don't have one system of justice in this country. We do. And it's predicated on two things. The first is a presumption of innocence for anyone who is indicted. Former President Trump, like anyone, is presumed innocent. Two, the outcome of any criminal trial is based and determined not on politics, but on facts and evidence. And if it's not at the trial court level, it can be overturned at a higher court level, and that's where we determine that that's where we guarantee the checks and balances, even in our own judicial system. So I would caution those who believe that President Trump is being politically persecuted here to not persecute our judicial and legal system. We remain a system in a country ruled by laws, and no one, regardless of where they serve, where they live, where they're educated, what their race may be or job may be, is above the law. And by saying that, Brett, I also agree that no one should be subjected to any kind of persecution because of their political views. I'm going to wait and see what this indictment, what the contents of the indictment are before commenting any further. But I would agree with all. This is not a good day for the country when a former president of the United States finds himself in this kind of potential legal peril.
Yeah, Harold, I've heard you talk before about this case as we knew it and the facts heading into this day. And you're right to point out, and I've said it 3 or 4 times on this show, that we don't have the specific documentation or how it's laid out by the prosecutors. But we know that the structure of what they were looking at going in. And you raised concerns in another seat on another show earlier than mine about that this was the first case to go forward as opposed to the case in Georgia or the special counsel case or others that perhaps politically you were saying could be different in how it's perceived.
But I give you credit. I wasn't suggesting you. I was just saying that there's some who on both sides who are taking either some apparent satisfaction and those who are taking a serious objection. I've said before on other shows and even on your show, if what we believe the structure of this indictment, which the press reports have suggested, and I think a lot of what has been said on this show is by some commentators is largely right, that this could be characterized, if this is something that a misdemeanor being elevated to a criminal charge, I think there is some credence to what's been said. But all I'm saying is I don't know. I want to see the indictment.
It is funny because they don't know, right? So they also keep having to speculate, which we all are technically. So, like, what if there is something? Is, like, kind of on their minds. Do you want to know why? In any other circumstance, you could very easily unload. You would need no qualifiers. You'd be like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, he's innocent as hell. Why can't they in this circumstance? Because Donald Trump has done a litany of so much illegal bullshit throughout his tenure before he was president, like over and over again, that it doesn't matter. Like, they don't know. He could have just as easily done something in that process where they don't know and they don't want to like look like assholes.
Politicians. We've seen routinely conservatives set upon by federal investigators and prosecutors.
We're all like
We've
Bryan
seen people who
Krasenstein
are
on his
praying,
day.
singing church hymns outside of abortion mills, who've been visited by FBI raids. And then we've seen people who have attacked pro-life pregnancy centers around the country. If they ever face justice, it's glacially slow. The effort.
Dude, this literally is like Tucker Carlson's own operation, the Daily Caller, and this is Tucker Carlson's own Michael Knowles. Where do they find these like slimy, wormy fucking Italian dudes that speak with the same exact tone? This is literally Michael Knowles, but for the Daily Caller. What is happening here? It's like blowing my fucking mind. How did they find this guy? It's like, this is actually completely unacceptable.
Every federal investigator who's taken a look at this has turned it down. And now a state prosecutor,
Bro,
Manhattan
close your
District
eyes.
Attorney,
Close your eyes. Tell me this is not Michael Knowles speaking.
claim in court that a federal crime has been committed. He's never faced a federal court for that crime. It is an unbelievable abuse of justice, and it's putting the country in a very bad place.
Okay, panel, stand by if you would. Let's bring in Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina.
The most
knows
fucked
one or two
up
things about the law.
The most
as well.
fucked up
He's on the phone.
haircut. Trigger warning.
Trey, your thoughts on this day, maybe from the legal perspective first.
I've always thought of the four
So
pending
welcome to the
investigations that we
shit.
know about. It was the weakest factually. There's a statute of limitations problem unless you dress it up as a felony. I mean, it really is a misdemeanor that someone put a suit on, which requires another offense and in furtherance of another crime. We don't know what that crime is. We haven't seen the indictment. I just thought it was the wrong prosecutor, the wrong fact pattern.
Hell yeah, Trey
and
Gowdy.
I'm surprised it happened. I do want to say this, though, Brett. This is not the first foray that our country has been through in terms of politicizing our justice system. I remember vividly listening to people.
This is literally Mike Pence before the conversion therapy, by the way. Like, just straight
Before
up.
a jury found her guilty, and then they chant the same thing about President Trump. We don't lock people up in this country that haven't been indicted or convicted. So both sides, frankly, have done it. And as a former prosecutor, I'm tired of that, but I'm also tired of prosecutors who decide which laws they're going to enforce and which ones they will not. Prostitution, Alvin Bragg says he will not pursue.
How is misusing campaign funds illegally only a misdemeanor? I mean, think about it. Think about why. Think about it this way, okay? Straw donations land you in jail, but misusing campaign funds don't. I wonder why. Well, one, because they've already made it legal to just like dump unlimited funds into any campaign you want by way of dark money, super PACs, right? So if you're stupid enough, Dinesh D'Souza, to like actually do straw donations because you're a fucking dumbass and you didn't know how to do a 501c4 or anything like that, then you go to jail. Well, you don't go to jail if you misuse campaign funds, usually. Hillary Clinton didn't go to jail. Barack Obama didn't go to jail. I believe I'm sure the George W. Bush campaign probably also did this as well. Like, there are every single political campaign has, in so many different circumstances, misused campaign funds, not to the same degree, but misused campaign funds in the same way where they're like, they write themselves an IOU or something like that. You know what I mean? Or they mismanage it. What do they do in that situation? They pay a fine. Okay? They pay a fine. That's why it's considered a misdemeanor. I mean, that's the reason why it's considered a misdemeanor is because it's, it's the people that are going to be the most powerful that will actually be doing the bidding of the most powerful people, right? Like the actually powerful people. You can't throw them in jail for shit like that. That's why it's a misdemeanor. Yeah, it's like when Congress gets caught doing insider trading. You know what I mean? Or when a really wealthy person gets caught doing insider trading, like Elon Musk. It's literally just like a slap on the wrist, because the system is not designed to ever throw people that are profoundly wealthy in jail. That is just how this works.
But politics never waits on all of the facts. The jury does, but politics does not. So read the indictment. God forbid we actually watch the presentation of evidence. And then we can debate selective prosecution. I think the hurdle that's hard to get over here, Brett, is many of us recall Alvin Bragg's day one memo. All the laws I'm going to...
But like, from what I understand, as far as we know, as far as what everyone has speculated on Trump's charges, technically, if he had filed the hush money, if he had filed like the in-between funds that went to Michael Cohen, who actually did do the hush money, if they had filed that correctly, this would not even be a thing. Like, he would not be indicted at all.
The two DOJ investigations into the former president being run by special counsel Jack Smith. Jack Smith was appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland in November to look at the president's potential involvement in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. He's also looking into those documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago, where the president lives. About 10,000 documents, a little bit more than that, taken around 100, we are told by Justice Department sources, that were marked that had.
Why didn't Trump pay the porn star with his own money? That way it wouldn't have been a crime. Great question. It's because Donald Trump is not as rich as you think he is. And I don't think he's ever been that rich. He's a con man, or he could literally be just a straight up fucking con man, which he is. And like, that's a very con man thing to do. He's like, yeah, I got all these funds. Let's use them. Who cares?
A few days ago, there's now a fight. The former president is trying to stop his aides, Mark Meadows. There's also an effort to get former Vice President Mike Pence and potential 2024 contender Mike Pence to testify before the grand jury. And, another interesting thing, Republicans on Capitol Hill, I heard Chad earlier, Brett, talking a little bit about the fact that they had doubts about Alvin Bragg and what Alvin Bragg could do as far as dealing with a former president and a 2024 candidate. There have also been allegations that Alvin Bragg's office was in contact with the Department of Justice here in Washington, D.C. DOJ officials say this is vehemently false. They have nothing to do with that investigation, and it's out of their purview. Brett.
David Spahn. David, thank you. Let's bring in Alina Habba, attorney for former President Trump. Alina, thank you for the time. Let me start with this. Can we definitively say that you've been informed officially of this indictment, and do you have the scope of the indictment from the prosecutors?
No, I do not have the scope from the prosecutors. I'm his civil attorney, obviously.
Bro, also, I have to also mention this, like, I don't know how qualified Alina Habba is as an attorney or whatever, but it's not lost upon me that, like, half of his fucking attorneys are sexy, okay? It's very strange that literally half of his fucking attorneys are just like hot babes, okay? I'm sure they're super qualified, but it is literally, no, I'm serious. Have you never seen it? Trump's attorneys, no, I'm not talking about Michael Cohen and shit. The ones that go on television, are literally either from a like Newsmax type fucking operation that they go on the Trump attorney team, or they literally leave the Trump attorney team and become a Fox News correspondent or some shit like that. It's always like that. It's very weird. No, I'm not talking about Rudy Giuliani. I'm not talking about Michael Cohen. I'm talking about the attorney teams, like, I guess, press-facing side. Trump's attorney teams either are like sexy babes, where you're like, what the fuck? What's happening here? Or Rudy Giuliani. And nothing in between.
Surprise. I don't think that would be how I would describe his state of mind. I think that he's disappointed in what has become a sad day for our country.
There was some thought when it was announced that the grand jury was going to
he's
pause
posting more.
for
Let's
a
go.
month, that perhaps they were going to punt and take some time. And there was reporting that there was some back and forth about whether to move forward with this indictment. Obviously, we are where we are today. Can I ask you about process and how that goes forward? Will there be a negotiation with the Alvin Bragg's office for the former president's surrender, for his transport?
I've been indicated. These thugs and radical left monsters have just indicated the 45th president of the United States of America and the leading Republican candidate by far for the 2024 nomination for president. This is an attack on our country, the likes of which has never been seen before. It is likewise a continuing attack on our once free and fair elections. The USA is now a third world nation, a nation in serious decline. So sad. You know this is him, and you know he was fried and angry when he posted this. God, he is so emotional right now, dude. He needs someone to save him. He needs someone to help him out.
Vindicated, and this will get dismissed, and Alvin Bragg will have to sit here with this, the repercussions of his decision today.
But I mean, there will be an appearance in some way, shape, or form in the New York City courthouse to do those process things, the fingerprinting and the photograph.
That is my understanding. Yeah.
Last thing, you're also facing, obviously, and you rightly point out, you're a civil attorney, but the possibility of other investigations bubbling up. The federal investigation in Georgia about alleging election interference, and that is in a grand jury. And also the special counsel's investigation into January 6th, and also the handling of classified documents. Are there different attorneys dealing with all of those? Is it one team? How are you breaking that down? And do you expect those to come forward in coming weeks?
There are different teams. Obviously, we have an incredible legal team, and I'm fortunate to work with them. There are different teams based on the states or whatever the issues are in investigations.
Trump will likely be arraigned early next week, his defense attorney says.
You highlighting right now, Brett, exactly how many of these grand juries are taking place against President Trump is the exact major problem of politicizing the Justice Departments throughout the country. And hopefully the rest of the country will realize just how corrupt these agencies have become and will become, aware and vote and see that our country is in dire need for reform and, frankly, fair trials and AGs and DAs, and we're lacking that at this moment.
Last thing, I mean, you do see each of these cases differently, though, do you not?
I do. I think that in some ways they're different in terms of what the context is, but quite honestly, Brett, I think they're all based in the same thing, which is selective prosecution by these Soros-backed, in many cases, DAs, who are trying to prove in their last effort to prove that they are a far left progressive before they're voted out of their offices. And I think that is really the theme here. We've got Jack Smith, as you mentioned, DA Alvin Bragg. We've got Letitia James, which I handle in New York. These are political figures fighting the leading political candidate. So in many regards, no, they're pretty much the same, and they're all based in nothing. And they're all people trying to find a reason to try and remove Donald Trump as the future president of this country again.
Alina Habba, Donald Trump attorney, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
True.
Thank you, Brett.
That's real, dude. That's what's
I
happening.
should point out the Georgia investigation is the local DA, Fannie Willis, running that. Let's bring in George Washington University Law School professor again, Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, you've been digesting some of this, and we've been careful to point out that
he's digesting all right
themselves of this indictment, but confirming the indictment and that they have been told that he has been indicted, the former president. The structure of this is quite something, and it is a big moment legally.
It is a big moment, and it's a chilling moment.
Thank you for the 5 gifted
is
subs.
That over months of investigation, we have not heard of other crimes. This is the crime that
Sean Hannity would never burp into the microphone.
Have been debating. It's the crime that's referenced in a book written by one of the
BS, thank you for the 5
who
gifted.
resigned, then published a book about prosecuting Trump. And the concern is that if this theory is actually the basis of the indictment, then this is a rather ignoble moment in history. Donald Trump may be the first former president to be indicted, but if this is the standard, he won't be the last. And it's going to obviously get very fierce in terms of the motions and the litigation ahead of us, and obviously the politics. You know, it's a curious thing, by the way, to lead with this case because the chaos that is erupting is pretty much the element for Donald Trump. I mean, it's like trying to kill an orca by throwing him into the water. I mean, he's obviously doing well in the polls because Alvin Bragg just gave him a proof positive that the criminal justice system.
The polls haven't even come out since then. What the fuck? What?
We've seen the indictment. We still have to see it. But the history going to the indictment, Bragg ran on prosecuting Trump. So did the New York Attorney General. He had this very public, almost Hamlet-like process where he debated whether he could do this bootstrapping theory. He stopped it for a while and then was pressured to go forward with it. All of that smacks more of politics than prosecutorial discretion.
We're hearing that it's likely that the former president will be arraigned early next week, and we talked a little bit about that with his attorney about the process, which obviously will involve the Secret Service and the transport and the surreal moment of fingerprinting and photographing in a mugshot the former president of the United States. You talked about going first. You don't think that there's coordination here between Bragg and the others who are in the middle of all of this, do you?
No, there didn't have to be because it was being done publicly. The political leaders were actually calling on Bragg not to go forward and to let Georgia possibly take the lead. I actually think Georgia's not that strong of a case, but that doesn't say much. Anything is stronger than this. If we're right about the theory behind the indictment, you couldn't have.
Okay, the Georgia's not that strong of a case statement is insane, okay? This guy teaches law at George Washington University. Wild. What do you mean? He just very openly said the crime that was recorded on the phone. What the fuck do you mean? The fact that he said the actual number of votes that he needed makes it even funnier. You know what I mean? It's just such a wild fucking thing to defend even.
That's probably the greatest threat that the former president faces. Now, the problem, obviously, with the Bragg indictment is you couldn't have picked a worse jury pool for the former president. And, you could, have a hard time finding many people that have no opinion about Donald Trump in Manhattan.
Dude, it'd be so much cooler if more people actually started going to jail or got indicted, more politicians. I actually don't understand why people are not advocates for this. They always say lock him up, lock her up about Hillary Clinton. I'm sitting in the sidelines going, yeah, that would be sick. More, please. I'm actually a fan. I'm actually a fan of this. Please, more indictments for politicians specifically. It's great. It's fire.
of what they're talking about, and he expressed that frustration publicly this week, which politically adds another layer to that story. But you're saying the legal case on this front perhaps is the best going after the former president.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bragg did fulfill the narrative here. Unless there is some major felony out there that has not been referenced over months of investigation, he is about to give Donald Trump proof of what he has long claimed. The Mar-a-Lago case has become more complex because of the discovery of classified documents in multiple locations related to President Biden. President Biden's explanation of what happened in those documents is very hard to understand, that these documents were then divided and sent to different locations. That's going to make it a more difficult decision for Attorney General Garland when the special counsels come to him, or this particular counsel. But the Department of Justice has emphasized that they're focusing on obstruction, probably even more than possession of classified evidence in that case.
Last thing, Jonathan, how do you think this plays out, in sequence and in...
This has been a big day for the rule of law for white people. White women won a gigantic W today. Gwyneth Paltrow is found innocent in the ski trial incident. And unfortunately for white men, Donald Trump is, he was indicted. So...
to come in next.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh.
At the special counsel. The special counsel has a unique schedule problem. The Department of Justice takes the view that, I think the incorrect view, that you can't indict a sitting president, which means if they're going to indict Donald Trump, they better do it before he gets elected again. But that doesn't give them a lot of runway to take off this particular case. But then the election becomes a very odd debate because a president, in my view, can give himself a pardon. And so the election could come down to how people feel about a self-pardon. Donald Trump could run in part on saying, I'm going to pardon myself and go after the deep state.
That is pretty amazing that we're at this moment, and that is how it could play out. Jonathan Turley, we always appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Let's bring in New York Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, thanks so much for your time. We were talking about the politics and the moment. Our latest Fox News poll has the former president up 30 points on his nearest contender, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, who's obviously not in the race. It's very early, but it's a big lead in the GOP primary. Today, politics aside, as a congresswoman from New York, your thoughts on this indictment and the moves that are being made?
Well, first of all, this is a gross abuse of power. We've known that Alvin Bragg was planning on doing this. This is a guy who I think some of your prior guests mentioned that he would be downgrading in a statement and would not be prosecuting violent crimes. And so now he chooses to abuse power in this way. Had Lee Zeldin been elected, his first act was to fire Alvin Bragg because of his abuse of power. But this is not a surprise to any of us, especially on the Republican side, as we've seen the Democrats completely politicize just about every institution, the FBI, the IRS, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security. You just saw Matt Taibbi testify and have an IRS agent at his door, a really unusual circumstance. And I think a lot of this, and that's the first tier of it. The second tier I see is why this case, and you've seen Jonathan Turley and other experts talking about this being a weak case. Even Alan Dershowitz has made a statement, this is a weak case. But what this case is salacious. It's clickbait. It's something that you can get the attention of a mass number of people to mobilize to try to criticize the president in what I call, how many impeachments is this? The first impeachment, the second impeachment, the Mueller indictment attempt now, and then you had the January 6th. Now you've got this glorification and exploitation of President Trump's, very strong, obviously has 100% name ID. He's a celebrity, and this is great clickbait and great for the Democrats to attack someone that they can't stand, and they lust to see him get the mugshots, to see him go through humiliation they have. But as I agree with Jonathan Turley, this is his arena. Chaos, the limelight, the excitement. He does well in this environment. So I think it could be a mistake on the part of Alvin Bragg and the Democrats.
Yeah, and I want to prepare people. Jonathan Turley talked about what's coming. You're going to see a lot of things legally, a motion to dismiss, prosecutorial misconduct possibilities, a change of venue. All of these things are going to happen legally after you get this arraignment, likely early next week. But politically, Congresswoman, do you believe in the bank shot that some Democrats have said that, sure, get him all the attention, get him all the focus, get him the GOP nomination, because we as Democrats, they say, are in a better position to win the presidency if we're running against Donald Trump?
That's an interesting question. This could actually backfire on them because it may be something that could prevent President Trump from getting the nomination. And then but any of our candidates, I believe, on the Republican side are defeating Joe Biden if he ends up being their candidate. And so I don't see how this is a win-win in any case for the Democrats. And what could be really inglorious is in the event that this case gets dismissed on a procedural ground, such as the statute of limitations has been violated, meaning it's too late to bring a case like this, and the fact that the federal prosecutors have already rejected this case. And it's going to be a real hard climb. As they say, you can indict the ham sandwich, which is what they're trying to do here, mostly for political exploitation and, as I said, media excitement. But I don't know if this is really going to impact who ends up becoming the nominee. We'll see. We'll see what Iowa had. That's over like less than a year actually away. We'll see what that looks like.
It'll heat up very soon. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, we appreciate your time on a breaking news night.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of breaking news, let's head to Chad Pergram, congressional correspondent, for some of that. Chad?
I've just talked to a couple of sources here on Capitol Hill about what this does to the House investigation of Alvin Bragg here. I am told that they expect the three committee chairs to take a little bit of a step back over the next couple of days until former President Trump is arraigned. Now, I'm told that they will continue with their investigation because they want to know all the circumstances about this, but they're going to take a little bit of a pause, tap the brakes here a little bit. There is still a deadline for tomorrow for Alvin Bragg to come up with some of the materials about his investigation and the scope of his inquiry. I'm told they do not expect him to comply, but one source said to me, Brett, the deadline is the deadline.
Chad Pergram live on the Hill with the breaking news.
I don't understand because, his lawyers already said to CNN, I don't know if they're wrong or not, but his lawyers already told CNN that they're going to fucking serve the top of the hour ad break at the top of every hour, and how that's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime. Or you can get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. No, but all jokes aside, fucking get wrecked. All jokes aside, Trump's attorneys went on CNN and said that they're gonna get they're gonna go in next week. What the fuck is this back and forth speculation? I don't get it. Here's a 3-minute ad break now, by the way. Go to jail. You can't indict me. That was a perfect segue. Marjorie's tweeting now. Let's see. Impeach Biden. He's given us every reason, and the family banking records and more are giving us receipts. But now that the gloves are off, prosecute any and all crimes. Enough of this witch hunt bullshit. Wait, what? That's awesome. First of all, yes. Secondly, what do you mean prosecute any and all crimes? Yeah. This is so fucking stupid. She just said prosecute any and all crimes. Yeah, that would also cover Donald Trump for the record. But it'd be great if it covered Biden too. Fuck it.
We need to wait for the facts.
Look how strong he looks.
We all want to run. We all want to fire beforehand. Republicans, Democrats alike, in that. And this is not a moment to do that. If some of the things that have been said, and I'll repeat myself, if some of the things that have been said happen to be true, that the contours of this indictment are as narrow as some of your other guests and even some on this panel right now are suggesting, I don't know how they know this, but if they do know this, they should just say they've seen the indictment, because I have not. I don't know of anyone other than Alvin Bragg and his team that have seen it. 3, I've heard a lot about politics. And if indeed Democrats were wanting to be so political about this, and I suspect that a lot of them are, but in terms of the legal process, I've speculated that based on what the press reports have been, the 3 other cases seem to be stronger. But if politics, and there was such coordination amongst Democrats around this in the politics, Why wouldn't Democrats have waited for a stronger case to present before this? So I just think politics is not a part of this as much as we're thinking.
Molly, I've got about 30 seconds for you to final thoughts.
When Hillary Clinton created the Russia collusion hoax by inventing that fake dossier, which never was prosecuted as a campaign crime, people said as the Russia collusion hoax unfolded that we have to wait for the facts. That awakened an entire country to how politicized the Department of Justice had become and how we actually don't have to wait for them to go for hours and months and years on their political prosecutions, as they've done at the federal level, the state level, and now the local level.
Panel, thank you so much. Rolling with the punches tonight on the Breaking News Night. We appreciate it. Thank you for inviting us into your home tonight. Continuing coverage here on Fox News Channel. That's it for this special report. There is other news today. We'll bring you more tomorrow. Fair, balanced, and unafraid. Jesse Watters Primetime starts right now. Jesse?
Thanks, Brett. Fox News alert. For the first time in American history, a former president's been indicted. This day will go down as a dark day for
now
America.
Now it's getting good. Now it's commentary time. You're going to see Jesse. You're going to see Laura Ingraham. You're going to see fucking our big bad boy, Sean Hannity. And last but not least, you're going to see Tucker Carlson fucking going absolute bananas mode. This is where it starts to get good. Because leading up until this moment, up until this very moment, it's all like news broadcasting. And Fox News, even in moments where there's like breaking news, they oftentimes will do regular old news coverage, regular old news broadcasting. It's time for them to now take it to, what they're good at, which is propaganda.
It's in the media that your private life's your private life. Everything was consensual. Now, all of a sudden, consensual is a felony. And they're literally prosecuting the former president over sex which Donald Trump denies. He claims he was extorted. The left has been saying they want to get the government out of the bedroom. They just kicked down the bedroom door. This is a calculated move. Do you think Donald Trump be indicted if he wasn't running? Trump's poll numbers were looking good. And now Democrats will have the most famous photo of all time in their arsenal, Trump's mugshot. It'll be plastered on billboards, T-shirts, campaign ads, everywhere you look for the next 2 years. Mugshot will be front page, every newspaper, lead story, every network, every cable show. Democrats are branding Trump as a criminal, along with the 74 million people who voted for him. They think the mugshot will scare you. They're wrong. This will light a fire inside every rational thinking American.
Yeah, totally.
The biggest political threat to the current president, his opponent, has been indicted by a Democrat. President Trump released a statement saying this, quote, "From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president of the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hardworking men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. The Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to get Trump. But now they've done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who is handpicked and funded by George Soros, is a disgrace. Rather than stopping the unprecedented crime wave taking over New York City, he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring the murders and burglaries and assaults he should be focused on. This is how Bragg spends his time. Let's turn it over to Dan Bongino, host of Unfiltered on Saturday nights. Dan, you're looking a little emotional. I feel the same way.
Bro, that's so awesome. They're like, why would they ever be actually emotional? Like, I don't get it.
Right now, living in this police state. I mean, we're in a police state. I'm not even arguing
Bro,
this.
you're literally a fucking cop. What do you mean? Isn't he like a dick rider for the police state? What the fuck?
Their only job is to watch our shows, which is kind of humiliating, but that's for another day. It's not open for debate that we live in a police state. And, I was listening to your monologue, Jesse, and the first thing I was thinking is I remember when I was doing an advance in the Secret Service in a foreign country that had troubles with the democratic process. I'll leave out what country it is, but I assure you, unlike a Joe Biden story, this actually happened. And we were sitting around this big table, and the military folks and the staffers for this foreign country wouldn't talk to the staff. They would only talk to us in the Secret Service, which is a problem because we don't make the schedule, the staff does. So I brought the military guy over and I said, listen, why won't you address the staff? They're involved in this too. They said, he who has the guns has the power. You guys have the guns, we'll talk to you. It's ironic because that was under the Obama administration. And little did I know that that was going to be where we are now. If you've got the guns, you got the power. I mean, show up at a school board meeting to complain about your kid being taught to be a racist. You find yourself with an FBI specially designated code delineated by the Department of Justice after they got a letter demanding you be investigated as a terrorist. But again, you're the president of the United States' kid. Your business partner goes on a national cable channel, Fox News, and goes, hey, the guy sitting in the White House right now is the chairman of an internationally corrupt influence peddling organization. And what do? You get invited to the White House and you sell a piece of blowhole art for $500,000 to someone we have no idea who it is. And I heard a liberal on this network before, too, as well say, which I thought was the most telling statement, and she may have been sitting right next to you. It was really incredible, and she's not here to defend herself.
Look at these hogs.
But it's funny when they say the quiet part out loud. She said, this is going to be really powerful. It makes me feel powerful because it's going to be like this asterisk on Donald Trump forever. And I thought, man, did you just sum up liberalism? There you go right there. You need that power, don't you? You needed this so bad. You need him in handcuffs so bad. Now, let me just say one more thing.
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to hijack your show, but listen, you may have just handed Donald Trump the indictment. With the indictment along with probably the greatest Freudian slip ever. You handed him an indictment while handing him the nomination. At the same time, you may have just, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get out ahead of my skis. There's a lot of time here. But I can tell you everything he has said to people about they're not coming for you, they're coming for me because I'm in the way. Now you look at this tonight and you're like, yeah, that kind of sounds right to me. You're going to break 200 years of U.S. precedent about indicting your political opponents over a business records charge that happened 7 years ago with a woman named Stormy Daniels? That's what you got. That's what you're going to do. You're going to roll with that.
Yeah, they're going to do that.
It's funny because they keep talking about this thing with the objectively correct statements that is still a crime while also simultaneously owning Donald Trump for paying to have sex with, well, not paying, but wanting to have sex with someone who he now calls horseface. So it's doubly owning him. But because they're saying it with this weird accent or saying it with a tone that indicates sarcasm, that you're supposed to go and be like, yeah, they're really spitting right now. You mean to tell me that just because he grabbed the gun and went into a bank and pointed the gun at the bank teller and then said, put the money in this bag that I have right now, that's all of a sudden illegal, especially after he walked out of the bank with a bag full of cash, and then some of the bags full of cash actually featured one of those dyes that explode when you walk out of the bank, and then it blew up in his face, and his face was purple, and then he got in the fucking car anyway. He called the Uber and got to the Uber and said, drive really fast. It's a fucking robbery. You mean to tell me that is illegal? You mean to tell me that when the Uber pulled over, when the cops came and arrested him, that he's supposed to go to jail? Yeah! Yeah! You just described the crime. It's a fucking police state. Man.
On it. Yet liberals always have the opportunity to do the right thing. And it's amazing how they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Well, if they had the votes, why are they doing this, Dan? I mean, you had Joe Biden had more votes than any other president in American history. He has the votes.
81 million
why is he
votes.
locking up his opponent if he's gonna get reelected? We have actually now a statement from the DeSantis
There's
team.
no way they're posting like
this. It says
this.
The weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American. The Soros-backed Manhattan district attorney has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and to excuse criminal misconduct. Yet, now he's stretching the law to target a political opponent. Florida will not assist in an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda. So they're not allowing the former president to zoom in for this arraignment. They're demanding, we believe, he go to Manhattan and get booked and fingerprinted and get the mugshot. Is the extradition situation in play, as DeSantis suggests?
I doubt it. The governor did the right thing there. That was a smart and ethically the right thing to do, because this is clearly a police state maneuver by Alvin Bragg. No, and I'll tell you why. Imagine you're in vacation on the Bahamas on the weekend, right, or whatever you're doing, and the FBI calls you and says, hey, we're going to indict you on Monday on some kind of whatever charge, felonious mopery. And you say, well, all right, I'll be back on Tuesday. They're not going to seek extradition unless there's a complication about you turning up in court. So, I mean, I doubt that's going to happen. But think about how pathetic this case really was. You have 23 grand jurors, right? You only need 12, so you need about half, right? You don't even need beyond a reasonable doubt evidence that the subject you're talking about is guilty. You need just probable cause that a crime was committed. And it took them months to get that. And you're suggesting to me that...
Wait, you mean to tell me that, like, the DA on this took it super seriously and took a super long time to, like, indict a former president, a historic indictment? That's crazy. Wow. I mean, that alone indicates that, everybody knows if an investigation takes too long, that means no crime, That's how that works. Like, if the case takes too long, then you can't put anybody in jail, really.
Ray gave a press conference right there about how the police state is being used to destroy the constitutional republic so many fought so bravely to hand down to this generation.
That will be one of the greatest political speeches.
If Trump does the race, okay, that would be incredible. Okay? If he just fucking if he just ran away from the... Oh my God. I mean, it would never happen, but fuck, man. It'd be so sick.
Don't you think he should show his face after handing down an indictment to a former president over a BS charge like this?
Well, he's clearly a political coward. He's a George Soros.
He's not being the case. He's doing the
prosecutor. Race. And the Democrats have really crossed the Rubicon here. I don't know how you come back from this as a country when you are coming up with these...
You asked what the right's obsession with George Soros is, and that is the right basically saying that, billionaires are bad, but the Jewish one, that's a liberal. That's it. Like, they also, everybody kind of understands that, billionaires are bad, right? But Soros is Jewish. And so is Sheldon Adelson, rest in piss, right? But they don't really talk about Sheldon because Sheldon is on the right side of history. Well, he's under the ground now. He's fucking super dead. Again, rest in piss. But just a monster. Absolute monster. But that's besides the point. So they don't say that because he's a conservative donor, right? He was. I keep saying he is. He's super dead. Don't trust anything Ray Banrett says. What the fuck is... What? Why are you guys having conversations amongst yourselves in the chat while adding...
Where do we go from here?
I mean, that's the problem. We're crossing the Rubicon here. We have a president of the United States, Joe Biden, who is clearly compromised. He is compromised. We have the bank records, subpoenaed bank records, where Joe Biden, his family has taken $1 million from the CCP, and they're not going to do anything about this. A president who's compromised by China and Ukraine, but they're going to go after a former president and potentially a future president because he settled a nuisance claim with Stormy Daniels back in 2016. Somehow this is a federal felony under our campaign finance laws. This is... Who's Alvin Bragg going to bring into this trial? They're going to bring in a disbarred felon of an attorney and a former stripper as their star witnesses here. This is banana republic level stuff. And maybe that's what today's Democrats want, these leftists want. They're trying to destroy our country, and they are well on their way.
So it's not going to stick in Manhattan. I don't think it's sticking.
Oh, no.
Actually, we see Bragg. He's the big one. Just got into the SUV there. No statement, nothing. He'll probably go home and eat.
Wait, what?
So this-
yeah, that's like, yeah, pretty normal. Yeah, you know. He's going to go home and eat food, probably fuck his wife, you know. I guess he was saying, he meant like he's fat. He's making fat jokes. Oh, I didn't even understand. I forget that they have like, I always expect Fox News, because they're wearing suits, to be a little bit more adult than someone like myself. Like, I'm a dumbass, right? But like, when you're making fat jokes about Alvin Bragg, do you not realize that like Trump is also almost exactly the same level of fat? Like, what do you mean? You're like, oh, Alvin Bragg, the fatty, the only fat guy involved in this case. Make no mistake. Like, you know what I mean? I'm wearing a suit because of the unique day chat.
We have a Garland-appointed special counsel, Jack Smith, going after President Trump for the non-crime of having his presidential records in the office of former president in Mar-a-Lago, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. You have that Fulton County DA, Fannie Willis, going after Trump for objecting to a presidential election, which you're allowed to do under the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Democrats did it in 1969, 2001, 2005, 2017, but now they're going to get Trump about this, and now they're going after him for settling a nuisance claim from 2016. This is part of a pattern by the Democrats. They are afraid they can't beat him in the polls, so they're going to indict him.
All right,
Trump
Mike,
is
thank you very much.
virile
Let's
fat,
bring in
not
now
soy
my
fat.
co-host
Yeah.
on the 5, Judge Janine Pirro. Judge, your thoughts on today's development?
I have to tell you, Jesse, when I heard this,
Shit. It's just about to get
every-
unhinged. Judge Janine.
For me, this is a sad day for America. It is a sad day for the office of the presidency of the United States, and it is a sad day for a former president. For 7 years, they hated him, they targeted him, they hunted him. And their derangement even earned them a psychological disorder, the Trump derangement syndrome. He was impeached over a fake Russia collusion delusion. He was impeached over a phone call. Now we've got 4 grand juries impaneled. This is hate like I have never seen in my lifetime. And America has turned the corner. We've got Democrats who will do and say whatever they need to. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the rights of ordinary Americans. And what I'm talking about is an attorney general who calls parents who are concerned that their children may have been raped, domestic terrorists. We've got an IRS that literally shows up at the door of a witness who's about to testify about the weaponization of the federal government, the FBI agency. We've got from the Obama days the Lois Lerner and the IRS targeting 501c3s of conservative groups. And now we've got a Soros-funded prosecutor who laughs at the idea of putting criminals in jail, ignores the fact that victims are being beaten, stabbed, and murdered in New York City and thrown in front of trains, and wants to spend his time going after a president of the United States for a case that is not sufficient legally. And the amazing part of this thing is that this DA promised before he was
Thrown in
DA
front of
that he would go
trains?
after Donald Trump. These are unethical people. These are people who are not standing by the Constitution of the United States.
The strongest warriors of the Republican Party on the media side, with the exception of like Tucker Carlson, unironically are just like people that you would see screaming outside of a subway station. Like, they are so unimaginably insane.
Want to bring him down. They want to bring him down, Jesse. You know, Fox News poll has Donald Trump 40 points or 30 points ahead of the second person that's in line for the presidency that they were polling him with. This is as political as it gets. And go ahead, Jesse.
The timing reeks. You're kind of on the precipice of a little mini recession. The market's a little shaky right now, tons of layoffs. Big spring offensive about to happen in Ukraine. Russia does look like they have momentum there. The Chinese are aligning with our former allies in the Middle East. A lot of people are moving to the yuan. Last week, you had bank records coming out that said that the president lied and his family did get paid millions by Chinese communist spies. All of this is happening. A couple days ago, you had a trans mass shooter. And then all of a sudden, after we heard that the grand jury is going to...
This is my favorite kind of media analysis, especially funny when someone in media is doing it, which is, this is a distraction. I'm like, bro, one, you're in the fucking media, okay? What do you mean this is a distraction? You are literally the media, okay? And two, the fuck do you guys mean? And people in this community do it too. They're like, oh, this is a distraction from the Ohio train derailment. Remember when people in this chat would say it? And I was like, no, guys. It's because train derailments happen thousands of times a fucking year, and that's why nobody gives a shit about it, because it's like considered a normal part.
What I do know is that Americans don't think this country is on the right track. Americans are fearful about the economy, and we're in a hell of a mess right now.
John Miller tells Aaron Burnett that his sources say Trump charges of 34 counts related to falsifying business records. Wait, what?
Candidate for president reeks of third world country tactics. And this is wrong. They have been.
You are just angry by default? Are you just angry by default? Not really. I mean, this is a funny day. I'm not angry at all today. Wait, hold on. Maybe we should be looking at like CNN and shit, because I was just looking at the funny content angle by just covering what Fox News is saying about it. But they have been remarkably silent. They have been remarkably silent on like all the factual stuff about this case thus far, and just fucking crying. Trump team talking points leaked. What? We don't know. I don't know if this is real. This is real or not. It's, just some fucking shit on Twitter. Come on. Anyway, what I was saying is, like, every time there's something new coming out of like CNN, it's like Trump's defense attorney called in and said that Trump will go in next week. John Miller tells Aaron Burnett that his sources say Trump charges are 34 counts related to falsifying business records. Meanwhile, on the Fox News side, they're just like not talking about anything. They're just like, it's a witch hunt. It's a hoax. They want to take down Trump. There's no evidence. There's no facts on the matter whatsoever. Change title? Why? I mean, it's true though. CNN is excited. I mean, yeah, CNN is too excited, which is why I didn't want to show. I didn't want to show what the fuck they were talking about, because, like, it's boring. Oh, Trump indicated. Yeah. No, I don't want to do that because, I need to effectively communicate.
These documents and the specifics, I think, there will be a lot of people weighing in. Is there a probable cause that a crime was committed? But more importantly, the prosecutorial discretion. And would another person be indicted under the same criteria? It's going to be really analyzed. But as far as an historic moment, yeah, it's a big deal. And this former president is facing other grand juries, facing
because they've been indicted, which we should remind our viewers as well. Congressional Republicans have already vowed to investigate the Manhattan grand jury's investigation and the district attorney. How do you expect that part of the response to go in response now to the news that an indictment exists?
I expect them to make this a more primary focus and to amplify those criticisms. If for no other reason, it amplifies the criticisms of Donald Trump. These committees do have subpoena power because they are the majority. The Republicans are in the U.S. House, and these committees argue they do have proper oversight. But some of this, if not all of this, is political theatrics. The Manhattan District Attorney was fierce in his criticism of these requests from House committees, and he appears under no desire to come down here in Washington and testify about his work.
Scott, let's switch. We're obviously staying on this topic, but you've covered so closely the attack of January 6th, the aftermath and the changes that have taken place on Capitol Hill.
Someone in the chat said, didn't realize Fox News was screaming the whole time until this. Yeah. No, that's like their entire content is yelling, brother. Yeah.
As we hear news of this indictment.
It's a good question, John, because there has been unequivocal concern that this latest chapter in Donald Trump's possible candidacy for 2024 requires an enhanced security posture at the Capitol.
It's going to be
here in
Tuesday.
Washington.
While
fact,
the day's not been firmed up, source day Tuesday is the day being discussed.
For a 14% budget increase to nearly $840 million a year starting in 2024. And the top Democrat on the committee with oversight here, John, says Donald Trump, the candidate, may necessitate a budget increase because, the Democrats argue, he produces this toxicity in the political dialogue, which can contribute to threats and security risks. This only serves to underscore that point, as Donald Trump calls for people to protest in the streets and calls this effort to prosecute him a dangerous one. It adds this dangerous element to a political rhetoric, which is already pretty sharp and pretty polarized here.
Scott, let me stick on that point, the polarized rhetoric. All of us have a responsibility in the wake of this moment to choose our words carefully. You've studied a lot of words and you spent a lot of time listening to members on the Hill. What is your assessment of the level of the rhetoric? In other words, there is a way to respond that lets the facts come out, and then there is a way to respond that is more incendiary. How do you assess the response from the president's party, the former president's party, on that continuum?
Their defense is so full-throated, and I can say from having been here about a quarter century covering the Congress, I haven't seen or heard a political dialogue this vitriolic and passionate as I've heard since January 6th.
Oh, God, these guys are unbearable to watch, bro. This is why we watch Fox News, man, because they know what content is.
The Republican Party remains firmly in the hold of Donald Trump.
I'm sorry, but it's like, it's so boring. They're like, oh, God, I've never seen people get so flustered. I apologize for using the F word on the broadcast, but unfortunately, the situation calls for it. Flustered. That's right. Incredible.
When we'll hear from the president about this today. We didn't hear him talk in person about the journalist who was kidnapped today, even though we know he was briefed. We did not hear him give a public statement about the helicopter crash in Kentucky, even though we know.
You listen to NPR? Yeah, I listen to NPR when I want to learn about the news, okay? I'm trying to be entertained. This is a moment that calls for entertainment. I know the details of the situation. We've talked about it endlessly. I want to know more about the fun stuff. I want to know more about what the Republican base is fucking reacting to this, how they're reacting to it, what the fuck they're saying, how unhinged they're going to get. I want to see Jesse Waters cry real tears, okay? That's what I want.
Indicting your political opponent and has nothing to say for several days, we expect. Thank you very much, Peter Doocy. Let's turn it over now to Senator Josh Hawley. Senator, your reaction as a sitting U.S. Senator.
Oh, here we go.
Among your colleagues.
Well, I think what this is about is nothing to do with the rule of law, Jesse. Obviously, this is about power. It is a demonstration of raw power. I think the Democrats know this has nothing to do with the law. They're sending a message, and the message is they will use any power that they have to interfere in the next presidential election. They will not willingly allow Donald Trump to run for president. They will not willingly lose the next election. They're going to use every means at their disposal. And Jesse, these are the same people who have sent SWAT teams to pro-life activists, who use the FBI against parents at school board meetings. They will do anything, use any kind of power to try and hold on to their own privileges, their own positions, and we're seeing that tonight. This is just unprecedented in American history, and the only way out now is to win.
So this is like a fastball to the head of the batter.
Exactly. It's exactly. And the batter is the American people. The batters are those who are independents and conservatives who want to have their own views, who want to make their own decisions. And what the Democrats are saying is, we will use power against you. You want to elect Donald Trump? You want to have a choice? No, we will use power against you. You want to speak up at a school board meeting? We will use power against you. You want to protest peacefully at an abortion clinic? No, we will use power against you. It's the same message. They're just ramping it up. And Jesse, this is burning down the rule of law. And I tell you, they will regret doing this because I think the American people won't stand for it. And we've got to make sure that they do not succeed in what they're trying to do here.
Well, you as a senator have to take a stand, and your colleagues have to take a stand. The American people don't want to see a bunch of speeches about how troublesome this is and how historically significant this is. No. There has to be something else that you guys do. I don't know what that is. It's got to be some sort of show, some sort of resistance, some sort of action, because there has to be a line that they can't cross. And you have to show them somehow that this is just an unacceptable act. And you're a leader in this country, and the American voters expect that. Are you guys ready to show something?
I think that this is, you talk about the line that you can't cross. In my view, Jesse, they crossed it months ago when they weaponized the FBI against parents, when they weaponized the FBI against everyday Americans who want to exercise their right to free speech. And now they're just accelerating it. They're just pouring it on. So, yes, it is time that we said no further. We've got to call Merrick Garland from the Justice Department down to the Capitol. We've got to call him onto the carpet, put him under oath, find out what they're doing. Has DOJ cooperated in this? Are they aiding this prosecution? We've got to go after these Soros prosecutors who've been put into office all across the country and expose the dark money network that has gotten them into power. This is, you are right, Jesse. This is, the Democrats have crossed the Rubicon here, and they burned the bridge behind them.
They have.
And now we've got to defend democracy.
They have, and I'm sure there is.
These guys love the police state when it's coming after whoever they perceive as enemies, no matter how strong or no matter how weak, no matter how marginalized. So the one instance where like there is even a crumb of prosecution directed in their way, like in January 6th, or now, this is like almost a continuation of that same kind of attitude. They lose their fucking minds. They're like, what do you mean? This is not for me. This is for you. This is for like poor people. This is for black people. This is for brown people. Like, what the fuck do you mean we're going to get prosecuted for this shit? Like the very same state that literally will put you in jail without a court date for years and years, put you in Rikers Island in conditions that are literally worse than like developing nation prisons, okay? Without a trial, mind you, okay? Innocent until proven guilty. That very same state turns around and indicts Donald Trump for apparently 34 different fucking counts. And you watch these guys lose their fucking shit. The very same people that are like, no, actually, Khalif Browder should have been in jail for even longer. That kind of attitude comes from these people all the time. Maybe not directly towards Khalif Browder, but those exactly like him. That kind of oppression is not only justified, but defended every single fucking day on this broadcast. And then the one moment that like someone who is rich, powerful, white, Republican, openly conservative, defends the structures, the power structures that they advocate for, defends their fucking bottom line, defends their corporate overlords' bottom lines. All of a sudden, they're like, we got to fucking abolish prisons. What the fuck is this shit?
You believe that? He indicted a former president and then left for dinner and didn't say a word. Not only did they leak indictments, they leaked the lie that he was...
the irony, of course, if he said something, they would be like, look at him trying to fucking take advantage of the fact that he's in the spotlight.
About veterans. Are you ready? You represent him in the case down in Florida with the documents. Are you ready for how vicious these people are? These people are vicious. Do you have what it takes?
Well, I sure hope so. And I think there's a lot of people pulling for us beyond friends and family. I think it's a very important calling, whether you love President Trump or not. I mean, this is the rule of law that is literally being attacked every day. And I will tell you from the Florida perspective and also the January 6th perspective, we are seeing prosecutorial overreach left and right. And my hope is, Jesse, there's a phrase that lawyers use sometimes, the truth will out, meaning no matter how hard people try to suppress things, the truth eventually gets out. If the truth gets out about the decision-making process of people like Soros Jr. in New York and DOJ and the Attorney General when it comes to their tactics, their behavior, their heavy-handedness, their criminalization of civil disputes, if that all sees daylight someday, then I have faith we might be able to patch back a first-world criminal justice system instead of the third-world one we're descending into.
Well, I would hope so, but the truth came out about the lab leaks, so what? Nothing's being done to Fauci about it. Truth came out about the censorship before the election. They're still not doing anything with Hunter. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in the legal system anymore. I honestly don't. I think the legal system's been warped, and I don't think people trust it anymore. Lots more people than you think. Thank you very much, Trusty. We appreciate it. Let's now bring in Paul Morrow, former NYPD inspector and attorney. So this is just the indictment. Yeah. They're expecting action here in Manhattan next week. What would that look like?
So my understanding is that they're likely to produce him sometime early next week. And my understanding also is that the Secret Service is not going to leave his side throughout the entire booking process. Obviously, the rules here are going to be different than they normally would be. They're going to bring him in, and, you know, you talked about it earlier. He's going to be fingerprinted, and he's going to get that mug shot, which I think is really the, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here for the prosecution.
Yes, it is!
And then he'll likely...
Dude, the funniest part about it is that everyone's excited for that. Like, Republicans are excited for that because every Trump supporter also runs like a fucking Redbubble-style drop shipping shop where they will definitely put that mugshot on a T-shirt and try to sell it. Every liberal is excited because they're going to bust the fucking fattest cum tributes you've ever seen to photos of Donald Trump's mugshots. Like, it's a win-win. Like, everybody gets to celebrate this moment. You know what I mean?
Conference, I assume. He'll be out in front of the Manhattan DA's office, in front of the building here on Center Street. And, he'll talk to the cameras. When I'm saying procedurally, I mean the litigation, so to speak, the prosecution, the back and forth with the defense. There's all kinds of things that are going to go on here. Motion to dismiss, change venue. Trump's lawyers, actually, especially after the stuff with Costello, could challenge the indictment itself. And that gives you a whole other side of legal.
The chatter who said gooning for Trump, I can say whatever I want, but I mean, it won't stop you from going to hell, okay?
It's at the appellate level. My hope is that if the indictment is what we think it is, now that's a point we have to adhere to. We don't know what's in it. And we're not going to get that indictment, by the way, until one of two things happens.
If you don't know what it is, don't look it up.
The perp has to be in custody and you can release the indictment, or the judge has to okay it. So until one of those two things happens, Bragg would have to make a motion to release it. Then maybe we'll see it. Otherwise, we're not going to get it the earliest until next week.
So we expect to see another woman in the indictment, McDougal, who's a Playboy personality. So there's the Stormy payment, and then there's a possible other payment. There she is right there. And they're linking these two together. Now, as a lawyer, explain to me how this is criminal. If someone comes to you and says, I'm going to lie or say something about you if you don't pay me, you get your lawyer to pay her. Where's the crime?
Yeah, so you go right to it. And that's really why this thing is such a morass. Because, again, if the indictment is what we've been told, and he's bootstrapping his way into the federal charge so that he can get the felony and then get around the statute of limitations, which even then he doesn't really make it, all right, even with the felony. But if he manages to do that, then you have the problem that the charge here, going back to the Edwards case, it's not going to hold up. So
all right, so this is a BS deal.
Unless
it's going to get thrown, right.
Yeah, that's why they have to speculate unless there's something else. It's just like, no, but like, don't say that because that ruins the narrative.
Between the Secret Service and NYPD. There's going to be a lot of dudes out there.
Right.
We got Secret Service protecting the former president. You got NYPD strapped up right there at the DA's office. Yep. There's going to be a lot of juice in that building. Yeah. What's that going to feel like?
So, look, it's going to be very sort of militarized because you're going to have a lot of people there. You're going to have, now look, there have been some threats as were reported against Alvin Bragg. My understanding is that, that's died down a lot and that likely now it'll spike. NYPD will be handling almost all of those threats. That's just the way it works on the ground here in New York City. The service is going to be handling the Donald Trump side of this. And so, yeah, they're going to be expecting protests. There's going to be a lot of folks out there doing prophylactic work. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going on that's a deterrent that you don't see.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of intel work. There's going to be people all over the internet. They're going to be looking at various people that are already known to them. It's the kind of stuff I used to do all day, every day. They're going to be doing a lot that they can to move the goalposts, or the line of defense, rather, out further, so that they don't have to take action right there, so to speak, at the DA's office.
Is Alvin Bragg respected by law enforcement here in New York?
One other component that we have to talk about here, for the record, is Ron DeSantis' sentiment expressing that, where is it?